Some surgeons can earn about 400 to 500,000 a month. You'll probably be on call almost every day of the month. So you can be called back to hospital every night. If people ask me, ever regret being a doctor, I would definitely say.
Today we have a really interesting topic. You guys remember this video?
I'm a pediatrician, consultant pediatrician.
How much do you make now?
About 60, 70k per month.
Coincidental to that, we also did a video talking about doctors being the worst job in Malaysia. If you want to find out more, you can go and check out the video. So today, in order to understand about the doctor's career and industry better, we brought in a real doctor. He is Dr. James. Yeah.
I'm Dr. James Koch. I'm an ENT specialist.
Ear, nose, throat.
Ear,
right?
nose and throat, yeah. We are also head and neck surgeons. We do a lot of surgeries on the neck, things like thyroids, tumors, salivary gland, things like that. Yeah.
So now, question: 60,000 a month. Is that a shocking value for you, or like, yeah, it's very normal? Actually, that's a normal specialist doctor's earning.
I think 60,000 is a normal basic specialist earning in the private sector. I think generally physicians, if they are doctors in the medical field, basically they do a lot of consulting work. Patients come to them, get consultation, so they earn around that.
And this is just consultation kind of doctor, not surgeons, right?
Not. So generally surgeons or doctors that do more procedures will tend to earn a little bit more.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if let's say it's a surgeon in a private hospital, what is the range that they will be making?
I think an average surgeon will probably easily make 100,000 above. I've known some surgeons who can earn about 400 to 500,000 a month. But to earn that 400, 500,000, you'll probably be working really, really hard. Like you'll probably be working from morning to night. You hardly go home,
But by average is 100 and above already lah.
Yeah, by average, I would
And
say
100
so.
and above, you're talking about work-life balance. Still can go home, chill, enjoy with kids.
100, 200, that sort of range should be a more work-life balance. They choose to probably have less clinic sessions. They choose to do less surgeries.
I think we can stop the recording. I want to go and become doctor. For yourself, right? What is the highest that you've ever made in a month since now you are a private hospital doctor?
Right, so I'm a private surgeon. I'm not based in a hospital, so I only run clinics and I do surgeries. But I don't have many ward admissions, so I don't see a lot of patients in the ward, and I don't do on-call, so I don't see patients that come in through the emergency.
So you're the work-life balance kind of.
I choose to have a better work-life balance, so I'm a 9 to 5 job. Yeah, so it's more flexible. Yeah, I have a lot of I have more time.
So that explains the range that you're in.
Right.
Okay. To ask you as well, right? When you're talking about 100,000 up to about 400,000, right? Is that just revenue or minus of cost and everything, just pure what they get already as a doctor generally?
We can consider that as a take-home salary.
Take home already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But we haven't minus income tax. That one we pay at the end of the year.
Yeah, that'll be like 20 over percent. 26,
right. 28 now.
28 now. Yeah. That's true. Out of all these different specialists, which specialist will earn the most in your opinion?
Probably surgeons that do a lot of procedures, surgery, such as orthopedic surgeons. Anything that involves a lot of procedures, that's where the charges are high.
What about gynae? Ops and gynae, do they actually earn a lot of money?
It depends on what sort of procedures you do. So certain gynae, they are very focused on things like fertility. I think that's quite a lot of money there. We have also sub-specialists. So these are doctors that have very advanced skills that not many people do that surgery in the country. So because these procedures are very advanced, very difficult, only a few people can do it. So the costs are high as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Last time my wife gave birth, the doctor
Right.
was actually also a sub-specialist where he's a ops gynae. He also has a on-call sub-specialist under ops gynae.
Right.
So now, how to actually get there? Because that seems like the peak of skill set wise.
So when you become a sub-specialist, you are technically at the highest
level, right?
peak
Yeah.
level. Yeah.
So if we were to talk about a doctor's journey, like how you started, right? The only thing I know is that you apply for a medical degree, then you get in. But that is actually just the beginning of the whole medical journey, right? Now I graduated 5 years, I got a medical degree. from now on,
Okay.
what is my career progression?
So after you graduate, you need to serve the government for 2 years as a houseman. During these 2 years of housemanship, you go through different specializations. You rotate every 4 months, like in orthopedics, gynae, pediatrics, general medicine. So you go through a few of the main specialty. So you pick up some of that skill.
Kind of like management trainee, that lah. And then
Right.
you see all the different.
So you'll be doing a lot of day-to-day sort of ward work. I think housemanship really prepares you to be a medical officer. So a lot of times when you are a medical officer, you are sent out of the major hospitals, so to the district hospitals, and you will be the main doctor in that hospital. So
okay.
you are expected to be competent in doing, delivering babies, seeing sick children, manage easy, simple things like fractures. I did my housemanship in Sarawak. So you are expected to do cesarean sections by
that's
yourself.
Basic,
yes,
that's basic. Cesarean is basic.
Considered
Okay.
basic. So it can be a very scary experience as a
Wow.
doctor. Imagine you did 2 years as a housemanship, and once you finish housemanship, you go to the district hospital. You are the doctor in charge of that district.
Can be a very big responsibility.
very
right?
big
So
responsibility.
can I say that the difference between a houseman to a MO or medical officer, literally a houseman, you're more considered as like an assistant to a doctor. I suppose you will still see patients, right?
Right.
But not to make big decisions at all, right? Like life and death is not really in your hands yet.
So as a housemanship, you have always somebody to fall back on. You do not take full responsibility. Anything usually you go through your medical officer. There's a chain of command in the hospital, the main hospital. So you as a houseman, you're like the private, and then you have the medical officers, the major, then you have specialists, the general. So there's always a check and balance.
Right.
Whereas when you are in a medical officer, that's it. You're the only one.
You're the sergeant captain.
You are responsible for your actions. So it is a big jump from being a house officer to a medical officer.
So then after a medical officer, right? So that would be another 3 more years, is it? After 2 years houseman?
You work as a medical officer for about 2 to 3 years on average.
Okay.
And then you apply to do a specialization. You're going into surgery. So you apply to the master's program. So only a few universities in Malaysia train surgeons. So each year they will only take an average of maybe 10 to 15 students.
10 to 15 people out of the whole Malaysia.
Each university. So if you're talking about 3 to 4 universities, an average about 40, 50.
So only 40 ENT that year
Right.
who will
right.
be accepted.
Whereas if you are in the medical field, such as you're doing general medicine, pediatrics, then there's the parallel pathway. You can either do the master's program or you can actually sit for external papers, which are the UK exams. So when you pass it and then you fill up some logbooks and things like that, then you can be recognized as a specialist.
So
Yeah.
surgeon will be more difficult to get. Can I say that?
Yes, because the slots are
Slots
more limited.
limitation?
Yes, yeah.
For medicine means that even if I specialize, I become a consultant, right?
Usually after you graduate as a specialist, so consultants are usually specialists who have been in service for more than 5 years.
Right.
So the consultants would be, in other words, the senior specialist.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've met some consultant cardiologists
Right.
who don't do surgery. What's up with that? Because I thought cardio all supposed to know how to do surgery, right?
Cardiologists are different from cardiothoracic surgeons.
No wonder I'm not a doctor.
So cardiologists, they don't do surgeries, but they do procedures. I
What's
guess
the difference between a surgery and
Okay.
procedure now?
there's a bit of a gray area nowadays.
Okay.
Those days when you think about surgery, basically cut somebody open up, But nowadays, like cardiologists, they do a lot of stents. Yeah, if you have a block in the coronary artery, they do
Like
an angio. and-
Angio versus open heart. That'll be
Oh,
the
right,
big
right,
difference,
exactly,
right.
right.
Yeah,
So a
okay.
cardiothoracic will be, somebody who would slice your chest open and take out your heart and change your valves or put it back in.
So
and
that will
sew it
be
up.
a master's program in
Cardiothoracic
surgeon.
Exactly.
Then cardiologists will be
So cardiologists, they become general physicians first. So you can either go in the master program or you can do an external UK paper. So you pass as a general physician. Then you apply to the cardiology program. In other words, cardiologists are general physician subspecialists.
Talking about limited slots wise, cardiothoracic surgeon will be the limited slot program.
Right.
Then this one you will have a little bit more option to.
So as you complete your exams and you're a general physician, that's when you can go into the different subspecialties such as cardiology, endocrinology, respiratory, gastro.
So actually, in a way, cardiologist is a subspecialist, which means that prestige-wise, they are actually at a higher level.
So
but surgeon is a whole different category in that sense.
The training, everything is slightly different. The pathway is slightly different. When you become a subspecialist, you are also known as a consultant. So all cardiologists technically are known as consultants.
Right. So there will also be some where they manage to got themselves into the surgeon program and then choose to subspecialize as well.
Yes. For example, in my field, you can be an ENT surgeon. And then you can subspecialize in the ear, nose, or throat. For example, we call them otologists. So they are ear specialists. So they do a lot of advanced cases, things like cochlear implants. So as a general ENT, you probably do not do cochlear implants.
Right.
Yeah, but an otologist will do things like
that's
cochlear
subspecialized.
implants. That's a specialized.
So like for your case, are you a general specialist or are you a subspecialist?
I am a general ENT surgeon with a special interest in rhinoplasty. So rhinoplasty, rest of the world usually is under a subspecialty called facial plastic.
Right.
So facial plastic is a subspecialty of ENT. But in Malaysia, facial plastic is not a subspecialty. Because of that, there's no path to facial plastics.
Right.
So, but because I was interested in rhinoplasty, so I had to, go overseas out of my own pocket, do training overseas with some rhinoplasty surgeons. That's how I learned the skill.
How much will that cost usually? Like this kind of?
Sometimes we go for what we call attachment of fellowships or observership. So sometimes you can go overseas and you can do hands-on. Sometimes you just go as an observer, so you're not allowed to touch patients, but you watch and learn. A week fellowship can cost about, I think, between $5,000 to $10,000, excluding other.
Wow, that's just to pay the doctor to train you in that sense.
Right.
Oh, and I guess usually these people who end up being able to teach are also people who are quite well known in that industry,
Right. So you would want to train under somebody who is world renowned. You go up close to them. You learn how they operate, how they run their clinics, how they see patients.
The doctor quite good, right? Like, he'll be like, he cutting that person, he earn from the fee. He also earn from your standing around him to watch him cut.
So you pay about $5,000 to $10,000 for
one
per
surgery,
person.
earn 3 times, at least.
He might have an average of 5 to 10 fellows per week. So yeah, they do pretty well.
Now I would say that you have already, just one step below officially a subspecialist, right? Officially, because Malaysia don't recognize it yet, right? Now, how much this whole journey cost you financially just for the education side? Do you have a rough estimation, or you forget it pay so much?
It probably costs 100 to 200,000. When I got into the program, so it is a sponsored program by the government, so it's like a scholarship.
Right.
Now that doesn't cost much because the government pays for it, but we are bonded. That's why we have to stay and serve the government a certain period of years after.
How many years?
4 years. Yeah.
And degree program, how much it cost?
If you study in the UK, probably costs you between 1 to 1.5 million.
No wonder doctor charge so much. Then you earn back their education fee.
Right, it is not cheap to be a doctor.
ROI.
Sometimes certain countries are cheaper, like say, Russia, Ukraine. So they probably be paying 30-40% of what you would pay if you go to the UK.
So we'd say that generally anything about 500,000 will be
right, that would be a rough
idea.
Even during your master's program, a lot of doctors would, you can say, improve their CV by sitting for external papers. So these are exams that doctors from, say, the UK or from the US or Australia also sit for, or from Europe. So those also cost quite a bit of money to sit for them. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So now we have heard what's the progress like being a doctor, what's the earning prospects like, and so on. Let's take a quick break, and later when we come back, we will be talking about the difference between working in government hospital versus working in private. Before we move on, we just want to give a shout out to this beautiful panel at the back, right? For those of you who are wondering, it's actually a fluted panel, acoustic fluted panel. Since you earn so much of money, you may want to build a home cinema, right?
Right.
This will be the perfect wall insulation thing for you.
Home theater.
Yes. Are you a movie guy?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time that you build it. Yeah, I'll give you a contact later.
Sure.
So it's by this company called Sleek. Yeah, you can check out Sleek in the comments below. All right, welcome back to the second part of this episode. I recall at one point in time, there were a lot of doctors in Malaysia who actually chose to go into private practice.
Right.
Actually, even until today also, I think many doctors are just waiting for their time to end in government hospital and then faster go into private line, right? What is the big difference? If today, at your level, right, you were to continue your practice in government hospital, what would be the difference in pay like?
In my level, we would call it as UD 56, I think. It would be earning probably between 15 to 20.
After add everything also?
Yes, the take home.
After all the surgery, take home.
Take home, yeah.
Okay, let's go private. Done. Do you end up working more now in private? Or do you, during those days in government, you actually work more?
I would say probably I work more now in the private. Definitely more busy because I have to see all the patients myself. I have to do all the surgeries myself.
Right.
So in the government, usually you have a team, you have other doctors as well, you have junior doctors. So a lot of times you'll be more like a supervisor, you'll be supervising them. You sort of walk around the clinic and then you wait for one of the junior doctors to, consult you, and then you go and see the patient.
So you're more like a manager doctor there, right?
Yeah, you're like a teacher. Yeah. Like your job as a government specialist is to mainly to see patients at the same time to teach the next generation of doctors.
I see. Then let's talk about effort versus reward. Comparing to the hours that you put in versus the amount that you earn. Right. I mean, we know obviously in private it's a lot more. But what do you see aside from monetary difference wise? What is the difference between these two?
I think in the government hospital, because your salary is fixed, so you can be very busy. I think sometimes it depends on the hospital you are working in and how many doctors are there in that hospital. So sometimes you may be the only or maybe the other neurosurgeon, for example, in the hospital. So you can imagine you can be really, really busy. You'll probably be on call almost every day of the month. So you can be called back to hospital every night.
Wow.
You'll be doing hours of surgery. And at the end of the month, you're getting the same pay as somebody who probably would be doing much less work because it is a standard pay. So in the private, it would be more like the more patient you see, the more surgeries you do, then you get rewarded for it. You may have to work really, really hard in the government, but still get pay that we mentioned about earlier. So sometimes you may feel like you are shortchanged. Like, I'm working really hard. I haven't slept for days,
Having said that, I've also met many people who are actually excellent in their work.
Right.
Renowned doctors. But they chose to stay in government hospital. Right. So there has to be a reason why they chose to stay, right? And I believe for yourself as well, when you were considering coming out, it was more than a consideration of pay. There has to be like what do you see staying on in government hospital can offer that private hospital doesn't?
I think the passion to, for example, to teach. So they love teaching junior doctors. Some choose to stay because they love to do research, setting up clinical trials. Some doctors, that's their passion, they prefer doing that, so they stay back. Some doctors, I think, I would say it's like a higher calling to serve. So I do admire a lot of doctors like that as well, really.
So there's more like satisfaction in sort of the type of case, is it? Like the type of case, the extensive research that you can come out of it, because you can't be researching on your private.
Right.
You can't ask me to fill up a
now that you
form,
mention about it, you can also do a lot of complex surgeries in government. In government, you're operating as a team. So let's say in a very complex case, there might be more than 2 to 3 doctors operating with you at the same time. So in private, there is, but maybe there's less of that.
Talking about working in government hospital, sometimes it's not so ideal in that sense. There's always the shortage of manpower. There's always that random stuff that you need to do outside of being a doctor, Can you share with us more on how is it actually really like? And what are some of those things that generally makes doctor feel like, I don't really want to work in government because of those things?
So one of it, of course, we touched on that, was pay. The other one is responsibility. So you are given a lot of responsibility in the government hospital. So responsibilities such as teaching. So there's some we mentioned, some doctors love teaching, but some doctors, they don't like to teach, but they have to teach. So maybe that's where, some doctors, they are not happy about that. Other than that, you are also tasked with many, we will call it AJK. You are AJK of this, AJK of that.
Like school,
correct.
AJK kebersihan. Or...
Yes. So you have to attend a lot of meetings, come up with a lot of plans, drafts. Mainly, I would say non-doctors work.
More
sometimes
administrative management.
A lot of administrative work.
Right,
a lot of paperwork, filling this up, filling that up. Even sometimes certain things like print your punch card. You have to,
print your punch card.
But print your punch card.
Do you really mean by punch card?
So you have a punch card. So you have to sort of photocopy. I think some places are digital now, so you have to print it out, to key in the computer, you have to send it to the office. I think government hospital also depends on which hospital you go to sometimes. Some hospitals can be really, really, really busy. Like Klang Hospital, for example, we all know that. Yeah.
Is it still a 36-hour on call nowadays?
I'm not sure. I think they went back to that recently because of the lack of doctors. But during my time, it was. You go in the morning and then you go home the next day at night, sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember most of my friends who became a doctor generally for the first 3 years. I don't see them.
Yeah, we are very busy. So a lot of times we reach the hospital like 5 in the morning and we go home sometimes 11 p.m. the next day.
So now, if there's one thing that we can talk about improving the working condition for doctors in hospital, right? In government hospital. Now that you have left, so it's safer for you to give a wish list, right? Like what will the wish list be? Like just say one thing.
I think definitely the number of doctors in the hospital. I think doctors are being worked really hard and stretched because of lack of manpower. So when things are looking more bleak nowadays with less doctors available in the hospitals. So less doctors meaning longer hours for the current existing ones. Government is a lot of teamwork. Right. So if you're a football team, you're only playing with 5 players instead of 11 players. You can imagine that's not gonna be too easy for you. So
isn't this situation a little bit of a chicken and egg as well, right? Because I've always heard that there's not enough training positions in hospitals, but there's not enough doctors at the same time. So is it a little bit like a chicken and egg? Like you need doctors to help to train the younger generation, but there's not enough training places because there's not enough doctors.
So yes, it's true, because you need a lot of senior doctors in the hospital to train the junior doctors. If you don't have enough senior doctors, then how are you going to train more junior doctors? You probably would want to really retain all your senior doctors, one of the way that you can do, again, it always comes back, whether we like it or not, it does comes back to
pay.
the pay.
Yeah.
So, I think recently there is a pay hike.
That's too little, man.
Well, if you
there's
compare
nothing much
to senior doctors earning in private and government, again, then you see there's still a big difference. Of course, government probably can't be paying that much.
That's right.
But perhaps the gap can be narrower rather than. I think right now the pay gap is just too wide.
I mean, you're talking about 10 to 20 times. It's a bit hard to just say no. I'll just put it up front. Right?
So I'll give you an example. Like sometimes some of my friends, of course, I don't tell them how much I earn, but sometimes they would ask me.
After this, they watch, they'll know.
They would ask me, so James, you left private, so how much you're earning more? 20%, 30% more? I sometimes I feel bad that I'm actually earning probably like 300-400% more, So I mean the gap is just
just
very
too
wide.
We understand that the overall this is actually a very systematic thing, right? It's not really like a one-off kind of thing. It's not like there's one effort that they make, then it can solve all problems.
Right.
Because it's very much a cumulative, structural, systematic issue.
It would not be solved overnight, definitely. Let's be fair. This takes time. Somebody has to do it. That what do you call that? That willpower to push
that
through.
Political power and willpower.
Yeah, willpower. And sometimes you may have to be unpopular making certain decisions.
Right.
So
I'm going to raise a few ones that I've seen and I've heard as a good suggestion in my opinion, and you tell me how viable it is, right? And what do you foresee are going to be a problem, and hopefully this will be picked up by policymakers and hospitals as well. Okay, so the first one, I think a very common we see today is like they actually have a UMSC, where it allows specialist doctors to, aside from just doing their government practice, to also have a private arm that they can earn more. Right. So what happens is that at least the gap is not so big. They can still choose to serve and train the younger generation. That is something that's been quite a while. How viable is this system in terms of retaining the doctors and doesn't affect the quality of training per se?
Well, I think that is a good thing to have in the government hospital, where the government specialists can see private patients and earn a so-called side income. I came from a system like that because I work in Putrajaya Hospital, so we have something called full paying patients. I would have patients who would, choose to see me as a private patient, so they pay a fee, which is usually cheaper than the private hospital. Let's say for example, if they're queuing up in a normal government clinic, they might have to wait. But whereas the full FPP, you can just see the same specialist of your choosing on the same day. Actually, many of the government hospitals have this private thing. For example, let's say if I'm a private patient, I want to see this specialist in the government hospital, I have to go through the same queue as all the government patients. So you would be like,
so it's the same counter then, as well.
Right, correct. So you're like, I'm willing to pay to see this specialist, but I have to sit there and wait 4 to 5, 2-3 hours. Correct. For my number.
Since you are a doctor and you have experienced this, right, and you mentioned that you have seen certain hospitals, maybe they do not have such a special queue in that sense for private FPP patients, right? What do you foresee usually is the difficulty in implementing? Is it because maybe the administrative staff feel like, hey, why you give me extra work?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, what will usually be the issue there?
I think you hit the nail there. I think it's usually because once you open another, say, private wing, you're still getting the same people to register patients. So for them, because they are not getting any benefit from working more, for example, because all the money goes to the doctor. But the admin staff will have to work more, but they are not getting extra pay, for example.
Right.
Sometimes also there's a lot of issue because, for example, let's say you're doing really well. You have lots of patients want to see you as a private patient because they don't mind paying a little bit extra. Then sometimes, if you see too many private patients, then you start probably seeing less government patients,
Right.
then maybe your superiors or other specialists or other doctors or other departments will see that, like, hey, you're just concentrating on seeing private patients,
Right. In my opinion, when I look at this kind of situation, right, I think that it's not unsolvable.
Right,
It is
right.
solvable,
Yes,
but you
yes.
just maybe they need to hire someone from the private sector to go in and set up something. And then have a more transparent profit sharing kind of thing, or rev share, or like certain ratios to be put in place, right?
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, you're gonna.
So,
step on a lot
for
of feet now,
example,
right?
like I think does a pretty good job because they have that UMSC. They have their own private building. Their
Yes.
staff, the UMSC staff, is separate
Yes.
from the UMMC staff. KKM might, learn from that model, like what
Yeah.
the UM and UKM, the university hospital, has.
Let's move on to the next one, which is about doctors training, right? Just as you paid money to actually go and seek for outside doctors to actually train you on rhinoplasty, right? Wouldn't it be a viable option for training to be opened up not just within government hospital but with private hospital? Because as I'm looking at it, right, let's say every year there is 40 surgeons being trained. Over the past 5 years, there'll be about 200 surgeons. And these 200 surgeons would be qualified per se to actually at least take on a protege, right? Maybe after 5 years practicing bonded with government, like your case. After many years bonded, now you come out, set up your own practice. Will it be a problem if, let's say, one day government were to implement and say, hey, we're going to open this up. Let's say you are an ENT surgeon. You can take on, like, say, another 3 to 5 more person under your wing. And then we work out a model. Maybe, let's say, for this kind that has a training under them, and the patients under it will pay a slightly different kind of rate. Where government pay you all a little bit to subsidize in terms of training the person and so on and so forth. Yeah, wouldn't that then solve the whole training issue for surgeons?
Probably for medical specialties, yes, you can go under a private doctor and you're seeing how they consult and seeing, learning from them. But I think as surgeons it's a little bit different because if I were to take students under me, they would need that hands-on experience. They would need that
Learning how to perform,
how to
right?
do the surgery yourself. Whereas because you're in a private setting, I mean, which private
No one's to pay
patient
for.
will want to say, yeah, I'm willing to let your student,
Right.
do it for.
Well, if there's a different rate,
that could work.
yeah, you can tell, like for example, you can tell me, I cut you is 50K, my student cut you 25K. Maybe I'll be down to it, right?
Maybe. I'm not sure how
Maybe,
would the
right?
general population accept that, but I would probably think you would still be willing to pay more to get that more experienced surgeon to operate on you.
Okay. Fair. The
Yeah.
volume of cases to practice will be low.
Right.
Yeah, we can say
right,
that. So
right.
that may not be too viable when it comes to the surgeon path.
When the surgeon path,
Yeah, but
but
for the medical path,
right.
there's still
I
viability.
think
in that
it's
sense.
more realistic. Yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
although we may not have so many cardiothoracic surgeon or ENT surgeon, but ENT specialists will be there lah, at least, right? If let's say we open up the opportunity to train, there could be more.
like pediatricians,
Yeah.
endocrinologists, dermatologists. Yes.
Which will be actually a good thing, right? Because we memang need that at this point.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will that
Yeah,
then
agree.
give most of these doctors also a career path to look out at?
Right. Definitely. I think
Right.
that's an option. I think a lot of other Western countries are doing that. So
Western countries are doing that.
I think because, like, for example, like in the US, they are a private healthcare system.
true.
It's either university or private hospitals.
true, that's
So those, you could think about it. All their junior doctors do train under this sort of environment. Yeah.
Okay. So the
Yeah.
one is something that can be looked at, but it gets a little bit more complicated already when it comes to the surgeon path.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
Now, there's this huge question about when people become doctors. Sometimes it's not out of passion, not out of like they really love the field or they want to serve people, but rather it's just because they think that there's a lot of money involved. That
Right,
you can
right,
earn a
right.
lot of money. Remember at one point, it was like pharmaceutical. All these people thought like you're gonna earn a lot of money.
Right,
They
right.
go in, actually they don't even care about it. Right now, so I heard that there are certain countries that they make medical a second degree. So if you want to be a doctor, it has to be a second degree. Why? Because you finish your degree first, you still love to serve people, then now you can be a doctor, right? So at least there will be less influx of unnecessary doctor. So the training can be much more targeted as well. So as long as when we provide this person in training, the person is more likely to stay on the job over the long term, right? So what are your thoughts about this? Do you think Malaysia should somewhat implement a stricter education policy when it comes to medical, right? Lesser medical universities, or make a more stricter entrance for the program?
I think what we lack right now is an entrance exam, for example. So, for example, now we have doctors that are trained from all over the world. From the UK, from Indonesia, from India. So sometimes there may be some difference in the quality of, or maybe there's just some different way of teaching in different countries. So I think when these doctors graduate and come back, they should sit for a, what do you call that?
Like lawyers got CLP and that.
Right, like
you
an
have to-
exam, like a standardized exam. If you pass it, then it means you reach that certain quality. If you don't, then you may have to, sit it again.
Right.
So they do have something like that for unrecognized universities.
Actually, even when you practice law, when you come back to Malaysia, you have to take a CLP. Only you can can practice.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe they should have that before you become a houseman, right?
Right.
So at least maybe you can control the volume coming in. Then the quality
Correct.
of training could be better as well, right? Okay, Dr. James suggests, not me. No, I knew all these are just idea throwing.
Right.
Nothing wrong.
Yeah,
with it,
nothing
right?
wrong. Just ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much, Dr. James, for sharing all this.
Sure,
Right
sure.
now, what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break and we're going to come back to our last section where we do a quick wrap up of this whole episode. Welcome back to the last part of this episode. Now, Dr. James, just to ask you this question to wrap up the whole thing, right?
Sure.
I think doctor is one of those career that many people have their own interpretation to their own, because it is like almost like pilot like that. We always thought that, wow, very gaya, stuff like that, right? So, let's talk about yourself. What made you chose this career as a doctor to start with?
So I've always wanted to be a doctor since I was young. So maybe I'm one of those that from young I always
Right.
knew what I wanted to
Was
do.
it because like a movie or you played games with your
Yeah,
family or what?
it is true. I used to watch a lot of ER as a kid. I
yeah.
don't know whether you remember that
time,
show.
our time.
Yeah. George Clooney.
yes.
So I always thought like, wow, it's really cool to be a doctor. I never wanted to do anything else besides being a doctor. There was a time when I was in A levels. Yeah, so I was like thinking, oh, should I become a doctor or should I go into business? Yeah, because at the time you sort of start figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life. One of my uncles, he said this thing: if you're a businessman, you can never be a doctor. But if you're a doctor, you can also always be a businessman. So
That's
I was
very
like,
wise.
all right, that's it. Okay, then I know what to choose. Yeah.
When you watch ER, and you probably build up a perception of what a doctor is. But
Right,
getting
right.
into that career and becoming a doctor, you start learning the other 50% that you
Right.
like, oh my God, this is not what I expected a doctor is supposed to be, right?
Right.
So how did you reconcile the reality with expectation then?
So to be honest, Peter, I've thought of quitting many times during my training as a housemanship. So you can imagine, not sleeping for 2 to 3 days, constantly working 36 hours. You do start to self-doubt and say, why am I doing this? It's a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights, and lots of stress due to responsibilities. because you are dealing with lives. You have to be serious about it. You can't make mistakes, because when you make mistakes, it's all on you. You know, when you help somebody, you see somebody getting discharged from the hospital, that what keeps us doing what we're doing. I think that sense of, you know, satisfaction and sense of, what do you call that? Fulfillment, yes. Yeah. So that it's very hard to describe, but that feeling is very powerful.
I want to ask you also this one thing, right? When it comes to work-life balance as a doctor, and actually I don't believe in work-life balance. I'll just be honest, right?
Okay.
I believe in you pick the right kind of life at the right season. At least as a business owner, when I pick to say to rest, I am simply choosing either to earn less or either to forego certain opportunities. But as a doctor, you're also foregoing to save more lives. It's a different kind of pressure. It's not even about money anymore.
I understand.
No. It's
Yeah,
about the guy's
yeah.
well-being, life, and everything all hanging upon whether are you going to choose to pick up the on-call and go to that surgery, right? So how is it like balancing between all this responsibility?
Sometimes in life, you have to let go, and you have to tell yourself you have to look after yourself and your family first. I know it sounds a little bit selfish, but you know, sometimes you do have to do that. But at the same time, you're not really neglecting the patients. So for example, when I take leave, when I have all my patients waiting for me, I do tell them I'm not around, but there is this doctor, my friend, who will be, you know, if you need him, he's there, you can see him, and then I'll be back next week.
The other day, I was having a conversation with a doctor. So I was having this talk just 2 days back, right? Yeah. And she said this one thing is that you have to realize that you just can't save everyone. So I was just imagining the pressure that you have to face, right? Like for me, at least all I'm thinking about is just whether do I want to spend more money or is my children going to private school? No.
Right,
One is
right.
life or death, man. Like how do you balance between life or death?
Yeah,
Right,
certain
so-
specialization is really about life and death, like the doctor you mentioned, pediatric surgeons, cardiothoracic surgeons, neurosurgeons. It's really about life and death. In a way, I chose ENT is because
No need life and death.
yeah, to be honest, I you know, after housemanship, after, you know, serving as a medical officer, then it comes to the junction which specialization to choose. So I think I really sat down really and thought, will I still get that adrenaline rush, you know, getting a call at 3 a.m. and rushing to the emergency, or I'm the type that doctors just want to well, done for the day, 5 o'clock, I'm going home.
Right.
So I in a way, that's how I chose ENT, because ENT involves less emergencies,
urgency.
right? Less urgency,
Yeah.
less life and death, more like, you know, more like quality of life issues. Like patients don't breathe well, so you help them breathe better. They don't sleep well, you help them sleep better. They don't hear well, you hear them, you know, help them hear better. So it's more like a quality of life issue rather than a life and death issue.
I see. Yeah.
So those doctors who chose those specialties that are more related to life and death, I think the stress is much higher.
So what are the specialization that generally will be life and death situation that you'll be facing regularly?
I think neurosurgeons.
Neuro?
Yeah, even sometimes cardiothoracic surgeons. Yeah.
What about
Trauma
ortho?
surgeons.
Or trauma
orthopedics.
surgeon?
Yeah.
Trauma surgeon is...
You know, somebody comes in with a bad injury, car accident, you have to be there as soon as possible to save the person's
So
life.
they're usually the first line when there's an accident, that kind of thing, like
right.
auto, that kind
Right,
of...
you have to be the sort of first line. Yeah.
If let's say the person get hit on the face, then they realize that they need a more specialized kind of surgery, then they will still call ENT surgeon to come in on, right?
Fortunately, like for example, ENT usually it's they will refer us because notice some bleeding from the ear or there's some nosebleed. But most like serious injuries, there are more urgent matters to deal with, like such as a punctured lung, bleeding in the brain.
So
usually
trauma and neuro.
Right. So neurosurgeons and trauma surgeons will have to go in first. Then when they stabilize the patient, and then usually then they call the ENT, and
So
then
at
they
least you
come
can
in.
finish your morning coffee first before going in.
You
Or
can
then shower first.
you can say that, yes,
Because
yes.
not so urgent.
Not so urgent. I usually tell them, okay, we'll come in once you guys are done. So just call us.
So at least for those of you who are thinking about what specialization, or if you're ever thinking about being a doctor, now you get more information, right? So now, before you go, right, one final one will be this. What is a word of advice for aspiring doctors out there? Let's make it into two lah, huh? The ones who are thinking about being a doctor, that's the first group, right? The next group is people who are in their housemanship right now. Because I understand that this group generally are also a little bit lost, right? Thinking about whether to give up, and stuff like that. So let's start with the first one, which is haven't yet even start their degree in doctor. They are thinking about being a doctor. What's the first word of advice that you give them?
Yeah, we always joke that, we always tell people don't become doctors, but deep inside, say it is a very rewarding job. I can't think of any other job that is more rewarding than being a doctor.
But make sure you turn private after
years. It's a lot of, I would say, the monetary reward is there. But more deeper is the emotional and the spiritual reward, I would say. That reward, money can't buy.
Yes, I have to say, for those of you who do not know, I got to know Dr. James because I sent my kid to see him. Yeah, so it gave me relief that there was no problem. And I see him myself when I was wondering what's wrong with my nose at one point. Yeah, they tell me, no problem, actually, you're just thinking too much. Okay, that bought me a lot of peace of mind. Go on.
I would say it's not easy to be a doctor. You will face a lot of challenges and struggles. But if you are really passionate to be a doctor, I think the only thing that can really push you through the years ahead is that passion. If your passion is focused on money alone, and you will give up. It's not easy, but it is very rewarding, I would say. I mean, looking back, if people ask me, do I ever regret being a doctor, I would definitely say no.
Now, what about to a houseman? Let's say there's a houseman watching right now and he's literally thinking about giving up already.
Right.
Wow, my God, why did I choose this, right? Yeah, you have been in that position yourself. What is one thing that you'll tell this person?
I would tell this person that it's very normal to think like that, because I thought about that countless of times of giving up. But I would say stay focused. Think of all the positives of this profession. I know that's, again, we mentioned there's a lot of negative stuff to link to being a doctor. You finish your medical school, which was not easy in the first place. And now you're a houseman. It's just a process. This process will pass. And then things will get better.
How long you grind before you went to private?
I was
many
in
years?
Government service for about 13 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
13 years. That's all you need to remember. 13 years, or maybe 15, give it extra 2 years.
Yeah.
Give it extra 2 years. 15 years, then you are going to be looking at work-life balance with a good income.
Yeah,
all right, so thank you very much, Dr. James, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
People have any question, they want to reach out to you, right? Can they reach out to you via your Instagram?
Yes, of course. You can message me on Instagram chat. I think you call that.
DM. Slide into my DM.
DM. Yeah, you can DM me. I'm happy to answer whatever questions if I can answer them. Yeah. So right now I'm practicing in Sunway Specialist Center, Damansara, which is located not in Kota Damansara, in Sunway Nexus, right opposite Tropicana Gardens Mall. So yeah, if you have any ENT problems, you can drop by.
All right. If you have any comments about this video, some of your thoughts about doctor as a career, or you felt that as a houseman or as a MO yourself, there are certain things you want to share about your journey being a doctor, do leave it down in the comments below so that we can take a look at it and perhaps even highlight it. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time.